Okay. Am I audible? Yes.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Thank you. Thank you. So, I'm very happy to give the lecture, especially in the presence of Professor K. Karunagaran sir, one of the senior most linguists in our nation. And especially, I'm very happy that our Professor B. Balasubramanian sir, he is also there. And it is the center which he started when he was here. We got a center, we started a center. I think some 10 years before we started the Center for Endangered Languages. So because of that center, we got the experience of language documentation. And when Murali sir told me to give a lecture on field linguistics, in fact, because of this COVID, our field work is much disturbed. So now our team, we are doing a online field work, which is first time in the experiment. We are doing an experiment in India, doing online field work. So for that spirit, I told sir, better to give a, I can give a lecture on language documentation. See, regarding documentation, you may not be able to tell anything new because you are not inventing anything in documentation. So we are only, documenting what is available here. So therefore, documentation is something like a very laborious task. You are not creating anything new. We are just documenting the which is available around us. So I will be giving a 45 minutes. I will be giving our experience on language documentation based on two things. Number one, there are number of articles, books written by Professor Peter Austin and Hellman. So this is the theoretical background which we have. And for the last 2 years, 3 years, we have an experience in language documentation, and that with the experience which I can share what we are doing. So this is something very interesting. We the linguists of the world, came to know about the dangerous things what is happening around us is by the Mikhail Kroos 1991 a very famous lecture in Linguistic Society of India. So in 1991, Mikhail Kroos, he was the president of Linguistic Society of America. While he was giving the presidency lecture, one of the very dangerous things happening across the world is mentioned that many of the languages on which we linguists are depending are endangering. So the very famous quotation, obviously, we must do some serious rethinking of our priorities. Let's linguistics go down in history as the only science that presided obviously over the disappearance of 90% of the language which we have. So the very field to which it is dedicated. So we the linguists, we are depending upon the languages. So those languages are diminishing. So those languages are endangering. This was the question which Professor Kroos has given 1991. So really what is happening? Linguists are the birds who are losing the sky. So a birds can fly only in the sky. Suddenly, see that picture. There are thousands of birds are flying. Suddenly the sky disappears. What will happen? So birds cannot sustain without sky. Same as the case of linguists. So if one language dies, if one language disappears, 100 of linguists cannot sustain with that one because of that one. So we the linguists, we are losing our skies, as like birds are losing our sky. That is what is happening in the world. So in 2006, there was a solution proposed by Hellman. So what he mentioned that as a linguist, what we are doing, we are studying language, we are making knowledge out of language. He fixed the priority. Kroos questioned about that disappearance of language, and Hellman mentioned that with regard to the economy of research resource, it may be more productive to spend more time on expanding the corpus of primary data rather than to use it for writing descriptive grammar. He told us what Hellman mentioned, that instead of creating knowledge of language, better you collect the corpus, because what is happening every year, hundred of languages are dying. So our priority has been changed. So this is the intellectual context on which we linguists across the world are now tend to be language documentation. So I will be giving this lecture 4 points I will be discussing. First point which I want to talk is that why should we document a language? See, whenever we are Erakola speakers, we are documenting Erakola language. Whenever we go to the field, many of the Erakola speakers, they don't speak Erakola at all. They speak Telugu, they speak Tamil. They say, why should you study this language? So why should we linguists to document a language which the speakers does not need at all? That is the question we have to address. Because whenever you do any activity, you have to explain that why should you do it. So many of the people, people who believe in the ultra modernity, they believe that why should you worry about the small languages? Let people came into mainstream languages. Second thing, the difference between description of language and documentation of language. Then I will just explain the documentary linguistics. Then there are some 7 dimensions of language documentation. These are the 4 points I would like to discuss in this presentation. So see, why should we document a language? So to document a language, what happened? There are something changed. First one is ontological. So the political philosophy of language is totally changed. I will explain to the next slide. Second thing, there is a change happened in the perception of language. Second thing, practical purpose. Third one, academic purpose. We'll go to the first one. See, ontology means the reality. Ontology means how things exist. See, we consider language is a means of communication. So language is not only a means of communication, language is a common good. Language is a common good for humanity. Language is a common good for humanity and the expression of common goodness among us. So I'll tell you what is common good. Suppose if I drink a glass of water, the water will be diminishing. The other person who is sitting beside me, he may not be able to drink the water. But if I take a bath in a pond, if I breathe in an air, if I am just in a rain, if I am swimming in a sea, the other person will not miss it. So an object or an idea, when one person is sharing, if it is not diminishing to other person, it is called common good. So language is a common good. That is the one of the fundamental change happened in the perception of language. Language is not only a means of communication, it is a public good. It is a common good. It is a common good everybody share. For example, Tamil is a common good of not only for Tamilians. Malayalam is not only a common good for Malayalis. It is a common good, everybody share it. And it is an expression of common goodness. See, human being is basically altruistic. Suppose if I happen to be in a danger, I will share the same thing to the other person. Whatever which I feel is good for me, I will always convey to the other person, to him also to convey. That is why language is not only a common good, language is an expression of common goodness. Language is expressing the common goodness among us. Humanity, whenever you tell a person, don't go to that side, you will fall down, you are using the language to express the common goodness among us. So see, the life world. Life world is the world in which we are living materially. So life world is invested in each language. So I am coming to the point, what is the ontological position of language now? Life world means the world in which you, I, all are living. So that is invested in the language, irrespective of the size of the language. So each life world encodes each world view. Every language is having a life world. That life world is encoding a world view. Each world view is one of the potential way of experience of existence of humanity. So for example, if you study a small language, something like a Kuruba or Irula, The Kuruba's existence is, experience is invested in Kuruba language. That is the life world of the Kuruba language, and therefore each language is a way of life for humanity. So what we have seen earlier, we believed that you cannot live unconnected. You have to live to be connected. See, COVID proved that human being can live unconnected. So for the last 8 months, whenever the entire humanity is disconnected, hundred of people, they are all lived in their village, they are all lived in their own place. That means there are something which is invested in the language as our existence. That is the way we call that language is a common good. See the one of the example which I have recently when I was reviewing a book. See how that common good, how the world is invested. For example, this is a Malto. So Malto is having an animal, cattle. For a small cattle, there is a one word. For a young cattle, there is other word. So buffalo, it is whenever you want to call a buffalo, buffalo is having a mangu, adult buffalo, young buffalo, mangu. A sheep, goat, it is ere, eramagu. So what this indicates, so that Malto community having a different type of experience with animals, so they have invested their life world in that language. So that is the reason ontological priority is that why should we document a language means language is a common good. Our life world is invested in the common good. If life world is carrying a one way of survival of a community. So second purpose of documentation is revitalizations. So people, generally in India we used to say revitalize. So what do you mean revitalize? The simple question is very simple. Attempting to bring endangered languages back to some level of use within their communities after a period of reduction in their usage. So now we are doing field work among Errakula. Now Errakula community say, we don't want to speak this language, we want to shift it to Telugu or Tamil. But at any point of time, if any of the Errakula community, one generation want to acquire the language from where they acquire, therefore, that is the possibility. We have to provide something for future to revitalize a language. Suppose if Malayali people, if now my children, my daughter, my son can acquire Malayalam from my surrounding. But what is happening in Errakula, what is happening in small languages, that is missing. But after a period of time, suppose if community completely lose a language from where they acquire. Therefore, our linguist job is to provide the language as it is to acquire any time. See, how could we get the old Tamil? Because old Tamil is a language which must have been spoken in the Sangam age. But we have the corpus of Sangam age. Therefore, we can get into the culture of Sangam. Same as the case of Sanskrit. So if we are having a dynamic data of Sangam and Sanskrit, we have the responsibility to provide the language, the endangered languages at any point of time, at any generation of time, at any point of time in the history. Any community may come back to their mother tongue, but whenever they come back to their mother tongue, who will provide the primary situations? But we have, for Sanskrit we have the Sanskrit corpus, for Old Tamil we have Old Tamil corpus. Therefore, we get back the culture. That is the reason why should we document all our endangered languages. That is why how we are getting Sanskrit and Old Tamil. See, this is something like Noah Ark. Whenever that world was flooded, the Jehovah put all the animals in a ship. Therefore, we say that the animal kingdom sustained. Same as the case of language. We linguists are making a ship where we are putting all the languages there for at any point of time. This is not only mythical. If you go to, if there is this is a student, they are keeping the seeds of all the by all the botanic kingdom in a place in the Antarctica. Suppose if entire world is collapsed, the entire the climate is gone, the seeds are there. The seeds may grow at any point of time. So our job of linguists is like keeping the language, revitalize the language. We are doing a historical job. We are doing if you are documenting a small language, we are doing a historical job at any point of time. Today, the speaker may not use this language, but tomorrow they may not use. But any point of time in the history, people may come back to acquire the language from where they acquire. So our linguist job is to provide the language, primary situation, to acquire the community at any point of time. So see, a community or any generation of a community have shifted from its first language due to the non-linguistic reason. So now Errakulam community is they are shifting to Errakulam to Tamil or Errakulam to Kannada, Errakulam to Tamil, Telugu because of non-linguistic reason. May return to their language at any point of time. So in the 80s, our Tamil community returned to the cultural heritage of old Tamil. Therefore, we got proud of the Dravidian movement. Same as the case of in the time of Reformation, the India get back its Sanskrit past. Same thing how it happened in the Reformation in Europe also. They went back the Greek tradition. At any point of time, we have to get back. Then, from where they acquire this language? Because I can acquire Malayalam, Tamil from our surrounding. If tomorrow or after some 15 years, if Errakulam community want to acquire language, from where they acquire? Therefore, a multimedia documentation of a language with a different type of performances can provide a dynamic poor corpus. I say poor corpus. You cannot give a rich corpus because a language can acquire only from a natural surrounding. So as a linguist, our historical responsibility is that we have to provide a multimedia documentation of a language with a different type of performance. It can provide a dynamic poor corpus from minimum level of language acquisition. You may not be able to provide the entire language, the entire performance to acquire a language. You can provide a little bit of performance. So that is the practical purpose. The third purpose of documentation is to academic purpose. In academic purpose, for description of language, to explanation of language, and theoretical purpose. Description, so I am coming to the point that number one, why should you document language? One is to ontological change of language, ontological perception of changing language. Second thing, practical to revitalize language. Third one is academic purpose. Academic purpose, to describe the language, to explain the language, and to make theoretical generalization. So description, there are two types of description. One is comprehensive description, second is specific description. So a comprehensive description can be a grammar, text, and a dictionary. Say a descriptive, if you want to describe a language, you should have a grammar, text, and a dictionary. The best example is Emenos Toda grammar and text is one of the classical description which we have. And recently, Koyambi, I have reviewed that Kuruk language in Jesoar. It is a Kuruk language. It is a wonderful piece of example which I can suggest to any of the linguistic students, any of our generations, to use as a model. So, model descriptive grammar, and the other one, especially Beta Kurumba, recently Gale is Professor Dr. Gale is published that adopted text. These are the descriptive model which we can adopt. The fourth one, recently Madam Christina Raichur Madam passed away, and her dictionary, Bedaga dictionary, is the best model. And this, what I told, these all things are comprehensive description. Here, what we have a specific description. There also we have to document the language. Description of any level of language, of any grammatical category of a language. Suppose if you want to explain the reciprocals in Malayalam, you should have a corpus. If you want to describe the postposition in Kolami, where will get the data tomorrow? That means we have to document the language for descriptive purpose. So now the proper thing is that there are difference between description and explanation. See, describe the language as it is without addressing the question of why language is like that. But explanation is explanation why a language is like that. For example, English is prepositional. It is a description. There we never tell that why English is postpositional. That will never explain that one. So description, explanation, both are different. But explanation of one language can be done only by cross-linguistically. For example, if you want to explain, to describe the language as it is, you don't need to refer any other language. But to explain why. For example, English, Tamil we have postposition, we can explain, we can describe. But why Tamil is having postposition, we can explain, to describe Tamil is postpositional, no need to have another language. But to explain why Tamil is postposition, we should have the other language. Therefore, not only the big languages, not only the big size of speakers languages, but even small languages are necessary to explain. For that we have to go to the other languages. We should have a cross-reference. Description of maximum number of languages is necessary for the cross-linguistic generalization and explanation. Unless you describe all the languages in the world, you cannot make a theoretical generalization. Therefore, see, this is the statistics of the description done by the languages. Only 20% of the language in the world is described properly. Without having a comprehensive description, you cannot make an explanation theory. Almost all the linguistics theory which we build based on the description of 20% of the languages. Without describing the 80%, we are making theories. Therefore, all the theoretical postulation which we are making is built upon the 20% of the description. Therefore, the task of the linguist is to document the language, describe the language. See, not endangered language, only you can see the statistics, only 49% of the non-endangered language is described. When you come to that extinct, there are 899 languages are extinct. Out of that, only 38 is described. So there are around 62% of the languages died, left without undescribed. That means it lost. So this is the things which I am telling that. Why I am telling this point is that very specifically, we the linguists are build the theories all based on the 80% of the description which we made it. Unless you describe all the languages, you cannot make any explanation. Now, we have to make a difference between description and explanation. So, language description address the system of the language. The system of the language is an abstraction. But documentation, language documentation address the performance of the languages. Performance of the language is the reality. So when you describe a language, you are going to only to the lang, not the parole. You are making the theory of the abstract structure. But in documentation, we are documenting the performance, the surface reality. Why I told you the surface reality, the performance is necessary for tomorrow. For what? To occur by anybody at any point of time. Therefore, the description is highly theoretical, it is abstract, but documentation is on performance. So, description focus on system, documentation focus on performance. Language description describe the language with the minimum input. If you spend around maybe one year in a field, you can make a descriptive grammar. But language documentation present the language with the maximum amount of data. To make a descriptive grammar of Eracula, 1 year is enough. But to make a documentation of Eracula, minimum you need 5 years. Because for documentation, you are enriching the database. So this is the difference between description and documentation. So this is now we come to the second point. What is documentary linguistics? Now for the last 2 decades, after 91, the documentary linguistics is emerging as one of the leading area in the linguistics. There are many linguists are trying to be, language documentation project, and there are some 5 points identified by the Hellman, Peter Hellman, about documentary linguistics. The first one is that focus on primary data. Documentary linguistics specifically focus on primary data. Language documentation concern the collection and analysis of the array of primary language data to be made available for wide range of users. Second thing, concern for long time storage and preservation of primary data. Think you are documenting a language. Noah, the first father Noah, kept all the small pieces, small sample of animals for what? For tomorrows. Sweden keeping all the seeds of the world in the Antarctica for tomorrow. At any point of time, the seeds should grow. Linguists are documenting a language for tomorrow. For what? At any point of time, that should be used as a corpus to acquire a language. That is the ideal position. You may not be able to provide a natural language situation to acquire a language, but at least concern for long time storage and preservation of primary data. Second one, see, my team, we have a team here. Our team, we have a folklorist, we have computer scientist. We a group of people are working in the spirit teams, because never linguists alone cannot document a language. We need all type of people, because we are documenting performance, all type of performance. So documentation requires input and expertise from a range of disciplines and is not confined to linguists alone. Third one, close cooperation with the direct involvement of the speech community. To describe a language, you can go, collect the data, come back to your department, you can analyze, again you go back and you can check it. But documentation, unless the community is completely, come to your times, you cannot document the language. So documentation, primary things, we need a community's cooperation. Because now we are listing all the cultural performance of the community seasonal base. We are going there each and every time. So why what we are collecting? We are collecting the corpus. We are collecting the performance for tomorrow. And these are the 4 points of documentary linguistics. Now, there are some phases of language documentation which is mentioned by Professor Austin. I just present as it is, and that is the things which we are also following. Number one, we have to conceptualize the project. So we have designed the project. And second, the basic important thing, establishment of the field site and permissions. In Andhra Pradesh, you can go to any tribal community area without permission. But in Kerala, it is very difficult, especially in this insurgency movement affected area. It is very difficult to move there. So first one, we have to conceptualize the project. Second one, we have to establish the permission and field site. And we have to go for unless you have to go for funding application only after getting the field site. Without having a field site, never go for funding, because you may get funding, you may not be able to go to field. And then data collection and processing, then creation of outputs. Then sixth one, monitoring, evaluation and reporting. These are the 6 phases of language documentation which we have learned from this other people, the experience. The same way we are also moving. There are the primary purpose of documentation, primary means of documentation is data collection. First one, recording of media. It can be audio, video, image and text. Second one, capture of moving analog material to the digital form. Someday you may get some other old material which we get conformed into digital form. Third stage is analysis, transcription, translation, annotation and glossing and creating metadata. Never save any data without a metadata. Metadata means, now I am giving a lecture to you. somebody can record it, somebody can put somewhere else. But a person who is listening this lecture, who may not be a chance to know about me, they should provide who spoke where, in which context. So metadata is very important. If you are collecting a one vowel from a small piece of word from anywhere, you have to provide metadata. Then there is archiving. Archiving means creating archival object and assigning usage right. Then fifth phase is publication, distribution of materials in different form. These are the 5 stages of data collection. This stage we have to strictly follow the standards also. See, we need some type of a skill in language documentation, which Austin mentioned. And we should have a skill to conceive a project, design a project, and manage a project. I told you, documentation is a group activity, a team activity. A team activity, you have to conceive the project. Familiarity with the documentation theory. There are number of theories are there. I told you one theory is that why do document? You are documenting the language for after thousands years after. If a community want to acquire a language, you have to provide the performance text. That's one theory of documentation. Therefore, you should be thorough about documentation. Now, people say that documentation is nothing academic, nothing intellectual. But you should justify yourself. Why should you spend this much time? As Noah's ship and the Sweden sealed back. And ethical issue, we should be thorough. And intellectual property rights and socio-cultural issues and this communication. You should have a skill of all the things. So describing a language, you don't need all the things. Just to go to field, spend in the field, and you collect the data whatever you want, because there you are identifying the abstraction. Here you are collecting the data as it is. Then writing project proposal. So there are some type of a given template out there. Sometimes we have to create new proposal also. Then media management. There we need a training. Especially in India, what happened? We are very few people who are trained in the media management of language documentations. You may have a recorder, you may have a Zoom recorder, you may have a camera. What will do? There are many people who record the data. They bring the data here. When you open the data, you may not be able to manage the data. So we should have a thorough. I am very happy that Professor Vaman Rao Garu is become a president of Linguist Society of India. We should have a thorough training of young linguists for media management. How to manage the media to document a language, and especially recording techniques, field method, data transfer, backup, all things. And this is very important: data and metadata management. Data is nothing. Data is like an orphan without a metadata. If you have a small proverb, if you have a small story, if you have a small performance, without metadata, that is useless. You should provide metadata. And metadata representation, there are a lot of techniques which we have to transcribe it, we have to analyze it, and there are a lot of techniques, there are a lot of tools which we can use for that one. Then you should have the skill to metadata management and mobilization. See that the data which you are getting, you should mobilize it into different forms. For example, none of the tribal languages in India have script. You should design an orthography. You should make a lexicography. You should make curriculum. Whenever you have this much data, you have to use the data to usable. For example, tribal communities in Kerala or Andhra Pradesh, especially in Kerala, so they are shifting completely to the Malayalam. But what happened? They are losing their language. So we should develop a dictionary of tribal languages. That is what happened in Orissa. Now I am very happy that Orissa is having a paradigm shift in the tribal education. They are up to primary standard. They are teaching bilingually. They develop a lot of thanks to Professor B.P. Patnaik, he is initiating that work. It is going on. So therefore, whatever the documentation we have done, we have to mobilize it by publications, by multimedia. You should come to public sphere. See, lot of money is spent by Government of India. A number of queries came in the parliament. How many languages are documented by documented? How many? And then the parliament they give an answer from the CAL. Okay, this many languages are documented, but never come to the public domain. Public should be aware about it, because public is having a different perception about tribal languages. Let it go. Let the people come to mainstream, because if they leave their language, they will leave their life well. They will come to you to assist you. So therefore, you should mobilize that whatever you have documented. Then it's a team-based research. See, we used to go to the field. We used to spend number of days there. There, you should have a skill of sharing, transfer, capacity development. With a teamwork. You should have a team spirit. Then reporting. Whatever you are getting from the documentation, you should be able to present, write, communication skill. So what is happening? Many of the linguists are documenting the language. If you ask, no. You should be able to write, you should be able to publish, you should be able to use multimedia. So we have to generate a lot of media outcome out of this what is we are documenting. So third one is advocacy. This is very important, especially political and communication skill, willing to put oneself out there. So whatever we have documented, we should place for public accountability. So whenever you document a language, then only you will understand that richness of the language. You should have political advocacy which we have. So these are the skills which a documentation we should have. And now, tools and technologies for language documentation. So language documentation is absolutely a technological activity. I can tell you. We are using a lot of technology, because I told you. Seed bank of Sweden is kept in the Atlantic for what purpose? For tomorrow. So same as the case of we have to digitalize. There are different types of tools which we are using for language documentation. One is general purpose tools. Very simple, we have to digitize whatever word processor, hypertext processor, whatever data we are collecting. We may collect only the sound form, which we have to transcribe. We have to give hypertext. That is the basic tools which we are using. That is, first is called general purpose tool. Second is processing. So whatever data which we have to process it. The processing we are using different type of. We have to transcribe into IPA. We have to especially we have to club that sound with image. For example, we have a talking dictionaries. Talking dictionary we are using Java programming. Then preserving. That is very important. Whatever we are collecting should be preserved in secure form. And that is the general purpose tool. Second level, we have a specialized tools. It's like a toolbox and field work data node. There are some softwares developed by something LSI, what is called Summer Institute of Linguistics. SIL. They have a number of software which they have developed, which we can use for field collection, and speech analyzer tools like including Pratt, speech analyzer. Then we have Clan, EMU. We have a number of software which we are using. And then the third one is technologies, digital signal capture tools, recorder, camera. These are the technology which we are using. And we used to CD drive, hard disk. Now we are using cloud also, where you save the data. We may use a server, we may use a cloud. See, I told you, whenever you are collecting data, you are keeping like this. So this is the place you are keeping. This is the things. A documented language is a seed of a language. A documented language is a seed of a language. At any point of the time of the history, this seed should come out. That is the reason I am telling you, technology is necessary to document a language. The seed box, the linguists are doing a historical job is to keeping the seeds of language. At any point of the time, the seed should grow. Now, these are the last slide I want to share you. There are some 7 dimensions of language documentation mentioned by Peter Spring and Peter in the, this is an article appeared in the language. Generally, we are all adopting this one. See, there is something called the portability. Portability means a data which I am collecting on Eracola, a performance text, whatever text which I am collected for the Eracola, should be portable to any time and any space and anybody. A speech performance or any type of oral performance which our team is collecting, tomorrow we may leave the university, tomorrow this data may be go to some other place, at any point of time people should use it. Therefore, the first one is that content. Terminology which we are using should be standard. For example, one of the, there are some other form like gerund and past participle. Especially there is a word, what's called V2.
V2. Auxiliaries.
Auxiliary verb. Somebody called V2, somebody called secondary verb. Secondary verb. So this type of terminology should be thorough. You should always give a annotation to say that this language we are using V2, but V2 have other types. And accountable. The data should be accountable. At any point of time, the data should be empirically testable. Suppose if you generate a content about Eracola, you should provide supporting database to be accountable. Third one, richness. So describe a language, you don't need to have a rich database. But to document a language, you should have a rich database. Maximum amount of data should be kept. Then only the language can be portable. Because the accountability, how can you account to our Eracola data? Because you cannot go to field again. Because that itself is a very difficult task. So we have to provide maximum amount of performance of Eracola. Then only, if you are rich enough, if your data is rich, then only it can be accountable. So there is no other way. You cannot go to field now, because tomorrow, after some 100 years, the Eracola community may not speak Eracola language. And an observation which I made about Eracola, where you test, how it can be accountable? It can be accountable if and only you provide rich data. So rich that I am telling to my team, our team, collect maximum amount of data. Collect maximum amount of data. I don't worry about that, whatever the amount of data. And, excuse me, I'll take some water. So the second thing, format. See, a data which we have collected should be open. Tomorrow if I give the data to somebody, if they cannot use the data, what is the use? Make sure that the data format which you are using should be open. Third one, it should be machine readable. Not only machine, it should be human readable. So content should be standard. Content should be accountable, content should be rich enough to be accountable, and format should be open. Now, we used to say that we cannot, if you write a letter to CAL to getting a data, you will get a letter that you are not, we need a permission. No. You won't get data from any of the government institution. If you write a letter to the census board, they won't give data. But documentation, data should be publicly available. Data is not a private property. Data is a public good. So data should be open. Data should be machine readable. Sometimes, you may get data from some people. When you come there, when you open, it cannot be opened. And third one, discovery. Discovery means if somebody searches Google, Eracola, you should exist somewhere. So you should provide the data always in a universal platform where anybody can access from anywhere in the world. That is the primary things you have to provide data. Third one, relevance. And fourth feature is access. Should be complete access. Some people provide some data and they'll give only sample. No. Data should be provided complete and unembedded. Without any other disturbance, you have to download it. And universal. Anywhere you have to get the thing. Third one, citation. Whatever performance, I should know, I never say that, this documentation we are doing data. It is basically performance. So any performance, any speech performance, I'll show you some performance which we have collected recently. I'll show that one video. And should be credit you should give it to the community speaker. Credit should be given to those who are the consultant who provide the data. And it provenance and persistence should be permanently there and should be component based. And then when preservation, it should be long time preservable. Any technology may change, but data should be preservable for long time. Third one, the seventh one is right. Documentation. You should document from where, which time, who collect the data, and you should do the research continuously. So these are the 7 dimensions of portability. Unless a performance which you are collected to document a language is not portable in content, format, not discoverable, not accessible, no citation, it is not a public domain. It is not a data at all. So make sure that we are strictly following this data in 7 dimensions of portability. So I have shared all the supporting materials to Murali sir. If somebody want to know more about this 7 features, I think he can share that things to you. So these are the things what I told you. So in brief, the question is, in what I told, why should we document? There are some reasons. One is ontological reason, practical reason, and academic reason. And then we are discussing about the difference of description and documentation. And description always concerned about the system, and documentation concerned about the performance. Then we are discussing about documentary linguistics, 4 features of documentary linguistics, 6 phases of language documentation, 5 stages of data collection, and tools and technologies. Then finally we came into 7 dimensions of language documentation: content, format, discovery, access, citation, preservation, and write. These are the points we discussed. Now I will show you some of our works done by our team, CPDL, Center for Endangered Languages of Kerala. Sir, somebody can tell me how much time I have again? I have how much minutes I have further? Oh, okay. My presentation is done. Now I want to show some of the activity which we have done. Yes. So now, see, this is we have a Center for Endangered Preservation, CPDL, Center for Preservation of Endangered Divided Languages, which is started by when Balasubramanian sir is here. We started the center, and before UGC conceived the idea of endangered languages, we started the center for 5 years before that, and we are the first center in India established for the endangered languages. We are proud of it. And Professor Balasubramanian sir was the founding director of the center. And when UGC came with the idea of supporting, we got the funding. And I am just talking to you from the studio, which we have developed here. So we have done, these are the activities which we have done. Number 1, we made a GIS survey of endangered languages of Kuppam. I just show that GIS survey. Hope you may view it. Sir, Vijay, I am going to the video presentation. Are you getting it? Vijay?
Please share it, sir. We will busy. It has not yet been coming.
Okay. Then I have to share a separate delay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I'll go there. Okay. What about Vijay now? It's coming?
Yes, sir. We can see your screen.
It may take some time. No, it's coming. 1 minute. Sorry. 1 minute. 1 minute. I'm sorry. 1 minute. Let me go to the exact. Now it is coming. Is it okay? Yes. Are you getting sound? Are you getting sound?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes.
This is Kurpa, an urbanized beautiful area of the Chittor district, Andhra Pradesh. It is a tri-junction of Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh and Karnataka. The number of languages spoken at Kuppam makes Kuppam unique. The majority of the people speak at least 3 languages in Kuppam: Telugu, Tamil, Kannada and seldom Urdu too. In addition to these major 4 literal languages, the
That will get
different
stopped.
tribal communities